Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the episode recaps for episode 7 and episode 8 of SGSN's Survivor Exile Island. We have hit the merge, baby. Jeremy and McKenna are with me again. How are you guys feeling?
Excited. Yeah, pretty hyped about this post-merge portion of the game. As you can already see in the last two episodes, it got really crazy. I'm ready to dive into all this.
For sure.
Yet there is plenty to talk about. So we're going to get right into it. So we're hitting episode 7. We have just left episode 6 with them knowing that they have merged. Mm-hmm. We find out that this is a longer merge. It's about 5 days because it was over a holiday weekend.
Yep.
So when you give people a lot of time, that's when chaos starts. So we start with Zucker. Zucker thinks the door has now opened for him now that they have merged, and Escape's potentially being the next one out.
Which he does. He's not the next one out.
Yeah. And he felt like in hot water because he was left out of the Connor vote.
Mm-hmm.
And sees Andrew as a threat because of it. Yeah, and then we get straight into some other people talking. We have Alex saying that he wants Lauren out, even though they had something going on in the early portion of the game. They can't trust Lauren, and everyone knows that she has the safety without power advantage, which is the first time it's been mentioned on the episode. So now, it allows people to know, okay, the cast members do know that she has it, even though she was saying, oh, I'm going to make it a poker game and people can try to figure out what I have and what I don't have. They know exactly what you have.
Yep. I think she told her select group of people, the OG Phils, I believe she told. And so they know what she has, but then also it's very risky because it's a legacy safety without power. So let's get rid of Lauren. So I get this advantage because Greg has got to know, he has a strong shot to get it. There's only 2 people really that Mackenzie would give that to, and it's Mackenzie or Greg.
Yep. Yeah. And then we also see the foursome of Lilly, Alex, Greg, and Mike come back together, and they're already talking about how they are looking at how can we essentially threaten Lauren's game and up her threat level at the same time so that she can be a target. And they're thinking, well, if Exile Island still exists, let's send her again. So now it's been 3 times. Everyone knows she already has something. And sort of be like, hey, you need to play this, or this is how you need to do it, or we will send you out. And essentially try to control her and her game.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see if Exile really comes back into play within the post-merge, because you kind of hear John talk about it a little bit, I believe, in this episode about who's going to be able to send people to Exile after challenges and what other things might happen in Exile, and so it's going to be another tricky part of the game if it comes back.
For sure, yeah, we just don't know if it comes back because Ian and Morgan were just kind of at Tribal. I believe they asked hey, what about Exile? And they're like, so I think Exile is still in play, but how it happens, I don't know.
Yep. Okay, so now this is sort of going to go back and forth, but this is all stuff that happened before the immunity challenge. First thing I want to talk about is we're going back to the Connor vote. We have Andrew explaining to Lilly how the Connor vote happened. Then we get the more truthful story as well of Austin telling Zucker, John, and Mackenzie how the vote actually happened and that people were trying to make it so that it was Austin's idea when it was Andrew's idea.
Yeah.
So starting to see the strategic sides of what am I going to give out to people come out from Austin.
I think he doesn't want that target of the Connor boot, even though it was pretty much Andrew's move of let's get Connor out. but he also doesn't want that big target of assumption that he started the Connor movement.
Yeah, it definitely you just don't want that kind of target, like where you kind of win someone against like your own tribe already. It's right before the merge happens, and so it puts a lot of distrust in your former tribe mates who you started the game with, and so he wanted to kind of pawn that off on somebody else. But obviously, we kind of see that it doesn't really work all that well. People believe Austin more than they believe Andrew.
Yep.
Right.
Because we see in a John confessional, I forget what episode it's in now, but and probably the Andrew boot, but like he keeps saying like Andrew doesn't have correct facts. Like he's telling
that happens
people,
after the immunity challenge.
Yeah, he's telling. Why would you believe Andrew when you get one thing out of Andrew, but everyone else is getting something different about literally any topic you could bring up in the game? Andrew's telling different people different things. So it, of course, Austin, the trustworthy ally, people are gonna believe that over Andrew.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And the main point out that is Austin essentially saying, without saying it, no squeaky wheels, Andrew's a squeaky wheel. So we could see that come back, and we will see that come back to bite Andrew later this episode. The next plot line we see is the Lilly. Lilly's like, I feel so on the outs right now. I was added to the Phil 2.0 chat, but I was added last. And with how now it looks like it's not even going to be a thing. So that makes me really not trust Lauren, or even more. And I already knew I can't trust Mackenzie because Mackenzie basically told me she can't work with me to get to the end. And that Mackenzie's sort of going around and telling people that Lily's this little princess that everyone wants to work with, which while Lilly feels like I really shouldn't be a threat, but like the way that they're trying to word it to people makes it so that I'm this easy person to get out because look at me, I'm not going to win challenges.
Yeah. And, you know, as the editor, I obviously felt that was such an important confessional that I had to put it in there twice. So. But I think that maybe sparked something in Lilly to be like, all right, let's keep this ball rolling. Let's get going. I'm not going to take this and take this lying down.
Yeah, and I have written down that like Lilly is like she's expressing the exact kind of energy that a lot of people feel going into the merge. And it's just you don't know who to trust. You don't know where alliances are going to lie down, and there's just so much paranoia, confusion, chaos going on. And these people had 5 days between the feast to tribal. And so it's just, there was probably so much chaos going on, and it's hard to know who to put your trust in.
Exactly.
Yep. Then the last part of the pre-immunity challenge of this episode was the Pia tribe idol. Mackenzie is very mad at Alex because he was looking at his phone the entire time during their one-on-one. And she's not used to people not sort of like giving that common respect of looking back, only to realize, oh, Morgan sent out a clue. He was obviously trying to get the idol. I think he has the idol. But in fact, John has the idol.
John was doing the same thing to Greg.
Yes, while on a conversation with Greg, putting it off as he had work going on, which is very easy for John to do being on West Coast time. And now has 2 idols. It was the first to find what you seek was the hint, Gary of Guatemala, which isn't the only Guatemala reference of these 2 episodes. Everything is coming up, John.
Yes, which makes me very scared now because it's like whenever you have that like big moment of like, yep, Exactly. You're out of here. Like we saw we saw Will being like, I'm not going home. See you later, Will. Like, oof, John, I don't think he never said I'm not going home, but he had that cocky, like,
Mm-hmm.
I've got 2 idols. Suck
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and Jeremy, what's the history on, at least on US Survivor, if you have 2 idols at the same time?
Good chance you can go home with both of them in your pocket or play one wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So, which we will talk about later.
So at the point, it is easy for John to think when you have 2 idols, you have all this confidence now. You think you have a majority. Everything should be coming up, John.
Yep.
But as we see in episode 8, that's not the case. But we're in the immunity challenge for episode 7, the first individual immunity challenge. And we have a balancing competition. You have to balance ping pong balls on the ping pong paddle. And at certain increments of time, you would add more ping pong balls. At the end of all this, it's Lauren versus John.
I mean, what more could you ask for?
The 2 vets that everyone's already have an eye on. Lauren ends up winning, being able to successfully place 4 balls on her paddle, while John was just not able to handle all those balls at the same time.
It's okay,
Oh,
John.
man.
Happens to the best of us.
Sometimes, and it's natural, balls gotta drop.
How many of
Lord.
these ball jokes do you have written down, Tika?
I have 0.
Okay.
But the more important side of this is Lauren winning immunity.
Mhm.
How much do you think this really impacted the first vote?
I think it had a pretty big impact. I mean, we see at the beginning of the episode, some people are talking about wanting to get out Lauren because she's such a huge threat. And it's been kind of leading up to that the entire pre-merge sessions part of the season where people are they're very skeptical of Lauren. And I always think that like, if like you think that you have a big target on your back, then you kind of want to win that first individual immunity challenge because that it just assures you that you're safe through the very beginning portion of this merge.
Mhm.
And then you can really start to weave your way into other relationships to keep yourself grounded and not have that opportunity for someone to take you out.
I mean,
Right.
hell, you can exactly relate to that, Jeremy. Season 1 mini Yasawa Islands, like Jeremy won that merge immunity challenge, and it was pretty crucial in that vote. So like, yeah, Lauren could have been the one voted out at this vote, but I think Andrew did have a strong chance to be voted out anyway at this vote, because it's just, he was telling people like different information. John, I think, would have wanted to keep Lauren because Andrew was telling people John has this idol, John is doing this, that, the other thing. So I feel like Andrew still did have a strong chance, even if someone else won the immunity challenge, but they all might have just been like, let's do a happy consensus vote of Lauren.
Right. And just as a quick hypothetical here, say she doesn't win. She does have that safety without power. And we just saw her in the last round, despite not needing to play the idol and saying that she trusted the majority numbers that were going to be voting on Connor, she still ends up playing that idol. So do you think that paranoia comes through again and she uses that safety without power? Or does she think she truly believes in these numbers and wouldn't want to screw them over at the merge vote by removing herself from that tribal?
I think Lauren's a pretty strategic player where she'll be able to figure out when the right time to use it is. If she certainly felt like she was in danger, if she didn't have that individual immunity, I kind of think that she may have used it just to keep herself in the game, but still have the numbers possibly. I think she was definitely thinking about all the different options if she didn't have the individual immunity.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion, 6 is a far ways away from where we are right now, and especially when you don't know exactly where the votes are going, plus you might be in more of a minority alliance. I'm using that thing at 11. Like, I'll deal with 6 when I get there. I don't want to try and prepare for 6 when I'm still here at 11. Like, I think looking that far into the future is hard when there's so many people. It'd be okay if it was like a pre-merge situation where you're only dealing with 7 to 5 people, something like that. But now you're dealing with 10 other people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, going past that hypothetical, we do see Lawrence pumped. She throws shade at everyone else sucking at the challenge. And it's like pretty much just like, y'all need to step it up. But as Greg says, the game truly starts now.
The game is
your tribal phase. That's a whole different game than the individual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we see it start to go into action. So
yeah.
I want you guys to pretty much talk through here. These are the options that we see throughout heading into tribal. We see John, as we talked about, has his concerns because we see Andrew even talking about it, how he wants to pitch to John and to Lauren, like, oh, you guys should work together, but doesn't actually want them to work together. He just wants the idea of them working together out there to make threats. So it sort of goes with John's preface of Andrew's trying to do too much. He's trying to plant too many seeds up, not for this vote, but for 2 votes, to 3 votes, to 4 votes ahead. He's just trying to do all these things, and it's going to be impacting me. So I need to get the numbers to make sure and cut this at the bud and remove it from the table. But the other options that we do see is Jim's thinking, oh, we're going to be voting for Alex. Ends up there's no votes for Alex, but Alex is blindsided in this vote, left in the minority. And then you see some votes for Jim. So like when you're going through and sifting through this phase of the game heading into tribal, how do you think these people overall played it?
I think Andrew was the right move here. I don't think, like, I feel like it would have been like dissatisfying if it was like an Alex or a Jim, because we haven't seen, well, because Alex kept winning, so we haven't seen much of, Alex really play strategically. And then Jim has been always on the bottom, but I feel like he's been under Mackenzie, under her thumb, and just like whatever Mackenzie does, Jim does. So I feel like those aren't like compelling people to vote for. You want to keep those people around a little bit longer and maybe cut a Mackenzie so you can get Jim, or free up Jim something where he's a loyal guy who can be used as a vote. So I think Andrew here, who has his own like way of thinking and wanted to take a little bit of control, you want to cut that kind of person. Right. I think at this stage, I don't think it was a wrong move.
At this stage of the game, Jeremy, would you have said, like, because we have the threats, we have the non-threats at this stage, everything can change in Survivor, but would you say, as far as that went, Andrew wasn't necessarily a threat, but he was a most threatening player of what people would have seen as not the power players? Like, he had the most potential at that point in time to become a power player and have more control, as opposed to a Jim or an Alex at that stage.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You kind of hear Andrew talking about it during the Connor vote, where he's, and also in this episode, where he was kind of laying low, peeking out when he had to, and then with the Connor vote, he made his move. And then once we got into the merge, he was telling people different information, and then the people who he was telling information to got together and found out that it was completely different. And so he had all of the correct motives and intention to really become like this great player and go far into the game. but it didn't play out correctly. And so it kind of just created a huge target on his back. And then I do think it was the right move to cut him there, because he what kind of like what McKenna was saying was he has his own agenda. He was playing his own game, and he really could have gone in any direction. And I think that scared a lot of people.
Right. So ultimately, we get through tribal. 3 votes are on Jim. And that's Alex, Lilly, and Andrew. The rest of them, the other 8, vote Andrew out. He's 6th boot. First member of our jury, Mara Ponderosa. And but what people are more hung up on, and this leads into the 8th episode, is a lot of them, especially Mike Simmons and Greg, feel really bad about having to lie to Lilly and Alex and leave them in the dark. How you guys have both played long games where it's not a snap decision like a mini. You make the cut, and you know what? You can either deal with it or you don't. In a long game, you're forced to deal with the repercussions of telling people information or withholding information. So how do you teeter-totter that line?
I have been in Lilly and Alex's shoes before, where I thought I had allies on my side, and then they took out my biggest ally and my ride or die person in one of the games that I played. And so it's very tricky to have to tell people only certain information when you're also telling people different information. But we all know that's part of the game. And yes, people can be upset about it, but then they have to quickly realize, I got to get back into game mode and find a way to get out of the situation that I'm now in. And so, yeah, it sucks, but then you find a way around it.
Okay. Well, with that, we do see Andrew go off. 6th person voted off, as I said, first member of the jury, so they do know we are in the jury phase now. Any final words on our first jury member, Andrew?
I think he had a lot of potential here. And it was like, I think it was really just the right move to cut the potential before it actually was like formed into a solid idea.
Yeah, I think Andrew's a great strategic player. He knows what he's doing. Hopefully can see him play again and see more of his gameplay. But it was unfortunate that he was the merge boot.
Yep, and if you haven't watched it yet, definitely take a couple of hours of free time and watch his exit interview with Ian and Denny. He gets very in-depth about what he was thinking throughout this, and also some of his prior experience. It's a very good listen, very informative. Definitely check it out, and I think it really shows the quality of game players that we have on this season.
Yes,
but
sure.
We make way now to episode 8, and Zucker is very happy that Andrew is gone. He was a threat to him, and then it also helped that it was also revenge.
Yep.
Yeah.
Poor sweet Michael Zucker.
He's feeling good.
Yeah, he should be feeling good. But then,
Yeah. Well, we also get a quick one from Jim talking about how he takes a little bit of credit for helping get to the Andrew vote by saying that he brings it up to John, and he just assumes John just took it over from there and made sure a majority of votes were on Andrew. So Jim is now talking about, gotta keep an eye on that John. And hopefully maybe I can use this as an advantage later on.
Yeah, I mean, go Jim. Like he I think he has a decent mind for the game, but he just doesn't have the social capital for people to like follow what he wants to do. I think he has decent plans, but
yes,
not.
Yeah, I feel like he's more of like, people look at him and see Keith Nail, but like Jim does have pretty solid ideas, or at least ideas of what's going on. at least based off the information that it's provided to him.
Yeah.
He's able to really figure out like, okay, this based off this, the logical move is this person's getting majority of votes. When he gets new information, he's able to make it what it is and make sure he moves into the majority. Because for the most part, he's almost always in the majority vote, which is, it's not as easy as people think it is to constantly stay in the majority. So we have Jim there. We already talked about Greg and Mike feeling shitty about lying to Lilly. But Lilly is like, she was also tipped off by Mackenzie. So with Mackenzie, it's like, is it gameplay or is it just her trying to just be like, hey, I know the outcome, like, just be prepared for it. Like, it's not that I'm going to work with you, but I just want to make sure you're not completely blindsided. Like, is this jury management?
I think Mackenzie's just very girl power, girl strong. So she doesn't want to necessarily work with Lilly because their games don't align, but she still doesn't like not care about Lilly and not want her to do well. So I think it might just be like I'm looking out for you a little bit, but like you don't have enough time to change this vote. So like, it's gonna be Andrew, goodbye, we have to go tribal.
Yeah, and it might also be a ploy to stir some things up with Lilly, since she knows that Lily's close. Mackenzie knows that Lily's close with Greg, and so it could have been something to maybe stir something up, start something. Who knows? But it could have gone either way if it's gameplay or jury management.
Right, and so Lily's concerned now because she's now through the vote is now paired up with Alex, and she's like, Alex is acting crazy. Cut to Alex going like, I'm in a bad spot, guys. I'm not lying down for anyone, and I'm gonna take control of my destiny. I'm gonna change my fate in this game. I will not be dragged to the end. Like, I will make moves. The key phrase of all this, though, is him putting a stamp on it. This is the true underdog story. So are we seeing a rise in Alex based off of maybe he's going to show up more and have a little more fight in him, have some more bite to his game, and try to really make a stamp?
Yeah, I think so. As McKenna mentioned earlier, Alex didn't really go to too many tribals, and so we haven't really got to see him play much of a strategic game. And so I think now that he got through the merge vote and he was completely blindsided, he now knows the game is still on, and so now he needs to figure out how to just get himself further, and he's going to do whatever it takes to make sure that he can get as far as he can.
He said he wasn't happy about the vote, but he still wound himself in the majority for this vote. So I mean, it wasn't just all right, Lilly and Alex pick off, all right, next.
Yeah, and I'll have more to say about that later when we get to it. But we are now into the immunity challenge, because there's a whole lot of stuff that has to go down prior to us getting to tribal. So it's a 3-stage immunity challenge at the final 10. First stage, the first 6 to balance 2 solo cups in one hand while rolling a die on either side of the measuring tape. Have to roll a 6, show that you rolled the 6. You move on. We see Mackenzie, Greg, Austin, Mike Simmons, John, and Michael Zucker move on, which leads into step 2 or stage 2, which is you had 3 cups on one end of measuring tape and 1 filled with water on the other, and you had to fill up those 3 cups to a marked line on all 3, only using a straw to transfer the water. Where we see both Mike, Michael, and Mackenzie, so all the M's make it through.
M is a good letter to start with. I mean,
Okay.
I think it's a little overrated, but stage 3, the final stage with the final 3, you then would basically you're playing beer pong. All the cups are filled. You have to have 1 ping pong ball in each cup per the rules of pong, but you are not removing the cups. First to do that wins immunity. We see Mike Simmons win immunity.
Mm-hmm. One of the
First
dude
one.
bros.
A dude bro doing dude bro things.
Yeah. I mean, he did have that, like, where Zucker could have caught up a little bit, where Simmons just lost a ball underneath his bed.
Well, I think the most important thing we got out of this was, for anyone that was listening, Mike Simmons claims to have good mouth work.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yes.
heard that, and I was like,
Yeah, I laughed pretty hard.
Yeah, I when I was editing it, I was like, well.
Hey, he was just able to transfer water. Good capacity there.
Yep.
But Mike Simmons wins.
Mm-hmm.
He's safe. Chaos ensues for the other 9.
At first glance, you don't feel like, oh, it's great that he won immunity. I don't think he was in trouble. But then you watch the rest of the episode, and it's like everybody was in trouble.
Well,
everybody's name goes.
And we, in the last tribal, Morgan asked Lauren about the pros and cons of winning immunity. And like, should winning immunity deem you a threat? And Lauren says no, because, really, most of them are crapshoots. You don't know what people are going to be good at. They could win whatever. It's not something that's going to consistently be the same type of challenge. Right. But the pro of winning immunity and not worrying about it being a threat or in going for it instead of throwing one is for tribals like this, where if people want to know what Survivor in real life is like, you watch this episode, because this is where scrambling happens and you really see how these different configurations are trying to create majorities and create basically throwaway votes, rogue votes, so that then their 5 can do it. We never see one where like they can fully get a 6 in one room to claim this is what we're going to do.
Yep.
We do see it at ultimately 6 votes do get placed on Michael Zucker to go home, but we have all these different collaborations. I'm not going to go into details on them, but you have like basically the OG tribes of Phil and Alexa come together. You see the 2.0 tribes come together. You see OG Phil and Michael Zucker. You see the OG Alexa and Lauren, and that we have all these different
big
collaborations.
The Big Threats Alliance come together.
The Big Threats Alliance. And like, I literally have a page and a half of notes just based off of what all of them were saying. But essentially, we see all of them going like, oh, well, we could do this to get Lauren out. We could do this to get Alex out. We could do this to get Jim out, or whatever. Would people want to take out of the gym? But ultimately, the key cog here is a confessional from Lauren where she's talking about, I talked with my girl Mac.
Yeah.
Emphasis on Mac. Yeah. To weigh options, and Lauren essentially pitches the idea to Mackenzie and then to the 2.0 field tribe of, let's get out Michael Zucker, because she sees Zucker as John's right-hand man. They want to cut John at the knees and force John to have to work with them, even though she then says he's already stuck with us anyway.
I don't understand this. At least that logic of why she wants to vote Zucker. I mean, she might want to vote Zucker for her own purposes of like, I've been getting vibes, he wants me out. That's a good reason to want to get Zucker out at this point. But the reasoning of, I want John close when he's already working with you, and even if John and Zucker are a pair, you can be like, you and Mackenzie are also a pair, and Mackenzie also has Jim. So like, it's 3 against 2 then. Like there's ways where Lauren and Mackenzie are both still in the majority with Zucker still here.
Yes, like in hindsight, like hindsight, though, it's a good move to get rid of Zucker because Zucker was planning to go after Lauren and John and Mackenzie. But they don't know that at that point. So it's a weird decision to make, especially because I understand removing chips to try to get people close. And I talked offline with some of production about this, but like Jeremy, you've played multiple games now. You've had to cut people and like make other people weaker so that they could be closer to you or closer to at least an ally of you so that you have something there. And it's all about who it is that you're cutting at the knees and how are they going to react. Lauren knows John. They're friends. They know how John is. And we talked in previous episodes. John can be very vindictive and volatile and angry when something happens and he feels betrayed. So is it the right move to blindside John and essentially go, okay, we're blindsiding you, but obviously you're going to still work with us, right?
It's the right move. It did not happen at the right time.
Yes.
It was too early.
One or two more votes.
Yeah. Like Lauren, she has the strategic thinking. She has this perfect plan set, but there's still too many people. And there are too many people that they could have gotten out before weakening John to make sure John is closer to Lauren. And so we're probably going to see probably a small blow up next episode now that John's been kind of blindsided by Lauren and Mackenzie. So that's going to be probably pretty interesting to see come Tuesday or Monday.
So that's his plan. We'll see what happens with it. Obviously, the result that Lauren wanted ends up happening because she does have a conversation with Greg, who a combination of Greg and Lauren are in a lot of these meetings. And Greg is saying, and Lauren are saying, Zucker thinks it's OG Alexa and Lauren are going to be voting Alex. Alex thinks OG Phil, Zucker, and John are voting Jim. So the easy solution to this to get Zucker out is tell Alex to vote Zucker because Zucker is intending to get the numbers to get you out. And that way they get the extra numbers because they would also assume Lilly would vote with Alex in this event as well to preserve a number. That is a good, like, for your plan, that is a flawed plan. That is the right step for your plan.
Yeah. I think, like Jeremy said, there are just too many people still.
Yep.
And I sort of saved this before we talk about John. One last step for Lauren, and it combines episode 7 and episode 8. She likes to fact check people a good amount. She's upset that Lilly lied to her about a meeting that took place without Lauren. She's upset that Mike Simmons is throwing her name out and says that they need to fact check themselves. I don't think she's using fact checking correctly, but she should pretty much be saying, watch yourselves. I want to send your sorry asses home now. If it's up to me, you both will be gone. It's just like I'm not quite sure what she expects here, because if she wants to be that way and vindictive and get rid of people who are lying to her while she's also lying to them, so there's a double standard there. I'm just wondering, is she planning ahead here? Is she thinking about already trying to think about endgame? Because I don't think she is, because I feel like she's sending out people who won't vote for her.
Lilly and Mike are supposed to be with her, so she's feeling a little betrayed by them not being with her. But at the same time, Mike, I don't think ever was truly with her, but she thinks he was, so she's just like, what the hell?
But she has a majority alliance that does not include them, that she's more tight with prior to that.
then just let them lie to you.
Yeah, I think because everyone knows who plays this game. They're going to be lied to, and whenever you find out who is lying to you, you can definitely use that information against them and get you further into the game. And I think that's maybe what she's trying to do, and then she's just kind of just being a little over dramatic with Lilly's already lied to me now twice. One more and you're pretty much gone. And then Zucker is just you've lied to me, so you just gotta go now.
Yeah.
So.
The fortunate thing here is she was doing it in the confessional this time and not to their face at tribal or during a challenge. So improvement there.
Yes, very much an improvement.
Yeah. So I feel like what she really should have just taken from those as like strategic players, like being like, okay, I'm going to keep that here in the back of my head. I'm going to know that you lied to me about these things. It didn't impact me, but I know that you're not being fully honest with me. And then if the time came where Lauren felt like she had her back against the wall or felt like she needed numbers, she could probably try to pull something on them and be like, hey, I've been straightforward with you each round. I know you lied to me here, here, and here. If you guys don't work with me on this vote and send me out, you guys don't get my vote. Like that this is a part of the strategy where like you're going to the next level of trying to threaten your vote against people if that's like your last resort, because now you're sending people out that have an impact on you in the end game. So you have to be very careful with your choice of words and your actions and your decisions, because they could have huge ramifications.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what Lauren is going for. You just see it in a very odd and different way in her confessionals.
Yeah. I mean, take like Andrew. Andrew would be more inclined, he might be more inclined to vote for a Lilly or an Alex in the end because they voted with him and didn't betray him.
But moving on, we do have a mini thing with John. John has 2 idols. John feels very insecure about this vote. And you know what? He should feel insecure about this vote because of all the conversations. Like, if you can't get everyone aligning and on the same page, he's like, I'm trying to sow seeds of doubt on some of these people for their plans so that they can realize my plan's the best path forward for us. Especially for me, but also for us as threats and, whatever. And so he's now at the point where he's like, I'm most likely playing an idol to try to make sure my agenda goes through. But at the same time, like, if I'm not sure where the vote's going, I'll just say F it and play one for myself. And, I have another one.
Yeah. I mean, a little insider information to John's playment of the idol. He didn't know where the vote was going, so that was all crazy. 2, I believe it was the Specialists and Peridium both put out a daily content and a video saying like, ooh, misused idols, or like people who went home with idols in their pockets. And John's just like, well, crap, now going into this vote. So he was like freaked out by external reasons as well.
Yeah, and I think this is definitely a point where it's different from what the viewers see than what the players are actually experiencing in the game. Because as viewers, we're watching the episode and we see John be like, all right, I'm going to use my idol. And we're just like, why? The vote's not even really going towards you. But in the game, there's just so much paranoia. And when there's this much scrambling, you don't know what's going to happen. And so he has that extra protection of 2 idols where he could use one and still has one that nobody knows about. So it's a hard decision to make to actually play the idol, but it was just to ensure that he didn't go home.
For sure.
Right. And so moving on, we then have Lauren, Austin, Mackenzie, and Greg reconnect to re-solidify their plan to go after Zucker, and that they feel like people would not risk a rock draw for Alex. Lauren goes as far to say she'll throw $100 in a ring I don't know where she's getting the ring. That costs more than $100. And everyone can get a little bit of money if they went to a rock draw.
Yeah, I would have like tried to flip my vote somewhere to be like, ooh, let's see if I can get some money out of it.
If I don't think I'm winning this game, like I can at least try to win a little bit of $100.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we have that. Mackenzie says she chose chaos today heading into the vote and was mad after her conversation with John, Lauren, and Austin that we do not see. So we have no context for why she's mad, but she's mad, which gives enough reason for her to be vindictive and go, let me very gladly cut John at the knees, because she also has the mindset of he will still be forced to work with us and we're going to remove him early anyway. At least in her mind. I don't know if that's the same with Lauren and her plan with John, but that's Mackenzie's plan.
Yep.
And before we head into tribal, Mike has no clue what's happening, but he's upset and thinks people should just say names. Stop beating around the bush. And this is where you know the Survivor fans from the new Survivor fans.
Yeah, I loved this confessional from Simmons as someone who has played a game and no one wants to say a name. It is the most frustrating thing. And I've been the person who didn't want to say a name. But you know, it's kind of like what John is saying in an earlier confessional, where there's just so much scrambling. Plans are changing constantly. But it's just like, why can't we just settle on a name? Like, yes, we all have a different agenda, but we need to come up with something, or there's going to be so many different plans out there that no one's going to know what to do come tribal. And so I wrote down, this was probably my most favorite confessional of the season so far by Simmons.
I mean, I agree. I think this confessional is great, and there are like a lot of like frustrations with people not throwing out names, but as someone who was more of a person to throw out a name, be like, okay, so it's going to be this person, right? I got pre-merge. So like there's always that hesitancy, and I can understand the hesitancy to throw out a name, because then what if that goes directly at someone? So if John throws out Andrew, now Andrew gets that information, he could be like, all right, so we're going John then, and rally the reverse troops. So there's like give and take, but yeah, I get the frustration of like, who the hell are we voting for?
Yeah, and so that gets us into tribal council, and that's really the main preface of it is, who are we voting for? Where's the trust? What's happening in the game? And really, that's you have a lot of people doing what Mike Simmons doesn't like, and that's beat around the bush, give a non-answer, give the generalities. Only things we do get, without being too specific, we do get Lilly basically calling out all the threats and say, if you guys all want to be together, and like you see Alex and I as the only ones left that aren't threats, like it's you're next. If
you mean challenge Beast Lilly?
Yeah, challenge Beast Lilly. Like if you guys get rid of me because you guys think it's so easy to get rid of me, one of you is on the bottom. Multiple of you are on the bottom. You can't get to final three or get to final tribal, like get to final three, get into a final two, whatever it is, and be like, yeah, all 8 of us, we're good, we're strong.
Surprise, it's the final 8.
Yeah, and we have Alex going, I'm a free agent now.
I survived.
I want to see the world. I want to see the world burn. And if I survive, I know who's going home tonight. It's not me. But if it's not me, I'm a free agent, guys. Have fun with that.
See, that kind of scares me though, because like that would be like, ooh, he's a free agent. He can flip-flop always. and he's like doesn't have true alliances. Like that scares me, because if I vote with him for one vote, that doesn't mean I have him for the next vote. So like I'd target Alex next after that comment.
Yeah, it's definitely a, what's the word that I'm looking for? It's a risky thing to actually say at Tribal. I mean, yes, Alex, he really is aligned with no one at this point. He's on the bottom. But yeah, he could definitely go wherever he wants to and change alliances from vote to vote. So that way he makes sure that he gets to the very end. But it obviously works out for him.
Yep. And we do see that in the vote. So Mike Simmons doesn't give an F anymore and just goes, I know they're not going home, but I want to put Lauren's name down. So I'm putting Lauren's name down.
I loved that. I just thought that was the best vote out confessional. Just like, Lauren.
Yeah, I want you out. Here's the vote. I know it's going to be the only vote, but here it is. Then we get the 3 votes on Alex from Zucker and John. And 6 votes land on Zucker. But before the votes are read, John said, you know what? Everyone thought I had it. Might as well play it. I play the idol. Idol's played for himself. No votes cast against John. Incorrect idol play in my criteria. If he were to have been asked, though, he says offline consistently, if he were to have been asked who the idol would be played for, he would have probably second guessed and ended up saying it would be for Michael Zucker. That's a big game changer for him with Alex leaving and Zucker staying. What does that do with does that change Zucker's plan? Now knowing that the majority of the votes were on him, does he now no longer want to take out John and now has other targets?
I mean, I think the both of them would just be on a warpath, and then at final 5-4 is when Zucker would maybe cut John and be like, I gotta win. Bye.
Right. Yeah. And John would have been the same way.
Exactly. So I feel like the 2 of them are on the warpath until one of them realizes, ooh, it's close to the end.
So we get our true first blind side of the merge in Zucker. Goes out with the Jamie from Guatemala. That's how you do a blind side.
Yep.
Was he the only one blindsided? Nope.
No.
You just see John shaking his head.
That
Simmons
and then you also
his eyes.
You also see closer like him like cursing people out, but more importantly, you see Austin just like what? And it's like, dude, okay.
Well, like, Austin knew the vote was going on Zucker, but I also think he was sort of hopeful that people would have voted Alex out with him because he didn't feel comfortable voting Zucker out. He didn't feel Zucker was coming after him or Mackenzie. He knew Alex was at least saying his name allegedly, and felt for his and Mackenzie's game, Alex needed to be the one to go. But he knew.
Yeah, I know. But the thing is, like, if he knew, why didn't he tell John if he didn't want Zucker to go home?
Because he wants to be in the majority.
I don't.
Well, to be fair, Austin isn't loyal to John. He's loyal to Phil 2.0.
That's true.
John's not in that.
Yeah, that's true.
And as we know from Austin's first game, once he has like his tribe, that's who he rocks with, and he very rarely ever wants to truly tilt it. Because in that sense, it's the most steady course. You get the majority, and then you're able to just pagong.
Yep.
And then hopefully you find your way to the end with your original numbers. But Michael Zucker, 7th boot, 2nd member of the jury. Final thoughts.
So sad. Like,
yeah,
you heard it in the exit interview yesterday. If you haven't, please go watch it. Zucker became a very much a production favorite of just like, he was just this underdog. He was winning everything and like didn't really go to tribal, and then all of a sudden just like started rising up and then was cut too soon. I think he could have done some damage if he got further, but he didn't, and it was sad.
Yeah, another great player who had a lot of potential, who just ended up getting the short end of the stick in the end.
Yeah, spoiler alert, people. At this point, with who we have left in the game, we're going to be saying that about a lot of people as they exit this game. There was a lot of potential in this cast. Some of them do realize their full potential in this game, but you'll find out as we keep dishing out the episodes. But that, before we wrap up, we got to do our MVPs for episodes 7 and 8. I will give my unofficial one at the end, but Willie will start because I like the torture. McKenna, who's your MVP?
I think I just gotta go with Mike Simmons. I mean, he's starting to like get a really solid footing in the game. We saw he's in the middle of everything. A lot of people are involving him in all these different alliances. I think he was in practically like every one of them, and then he pulls out that immunity win and he's like, I'm safe from this crazy vote, heck you, Lauren, and just like has his own agenda. He realizes like people aren't saying names, this is problematic, like how are we supposed to decide on a vote, get a majority, get an alliance if people aren't deciding on votes together? So I'm gonna go with Simmons.
Jeremy.
I think my MVP this week, I think I'm actually going to go with Lauren. Based on her immunity win in episode 7, which I do think she was probably a possible target to go home in that episode. But then in episode 8, we saw a lot of good gameplay from Lauren. I still think that this Zucker move was a little bit too early, but I think it really opened up a lot of players' eyes on like what this game can do. And so I think that was a pretty good move on Lauren. So that's why I'm going to go with her this week.
Well, that adds Mike Simmons and Lauren to the pool of MVPs with 1. Still with Greg in the lead at 1.5. It's very diversified this season. So
well, I think that just is credit to the cast of like, we have like really great people in this cast. I think now as the merge it has hit, we'll get more people getting multiple MVPs because people just keep weeding out. But like, props to this cast. They're playing their asses off.
So with my unofficial, at first I was thinking Lauren. Lauren is definitely a candidate for it because although I don't agree with the move, she does the work necessary to get it done. She wins an immunity where she needed to win an immunity, able to hold on to her safety without power advantage for a potential later use. So like, in a way, these 2 episodes, in her perspective, everything came up Lauren. It didn't come up John. It came up Lauren.
Yeah.
But I would say another person, even it would be like an indirect MVP, is Alex, because he, while being blindsided in the first episode, all intents and purposes, the correct move would have been to either vote out Lilly or Alex and then do the fight within for structure of power. Like, keep that one vote to keep security in people, make them feel safe with you, and then do it. But Alex is able to get onto the right side of the vote, secures his safety for another round. You now, looking ahead, feel like Alex isn't going to... Who is Alex going to be the target of now that we would expect... Maybe John's a target now because he's going to be very upset. Is Lauren the target now, or Mackenzie, because of the same thing, John feeling betrayed? So now is he going to try to create a war? Like, are we going to see a war among the threats, despite the threats initially wanting to stick together for protection? So in that mode, when the threats start going at each other, the non-threats or the people that were potential targets, like in Alex, have room to play, and that's when they become extremely dangerous.
Yeah, I think this tribal gave Alex his legs to stand on, for sure. And he's now like Lilly with the whole like Mackenzie situation of Mackenzie's calling her out. Like, she's now, I've got to put in work. Alex is, I'm putting in work. So these people, by keeping them around, are furthering their confidence and their strategic ability, their influences.
Yep. So that was our MVPs. Who were yours? Please, like, if you're not part of the Facebook group, join the Facebook group, Survivor Game Show Network. We will add you instantly, and you could tell us, do you agree with our opinions on who were the best players or the shining players of these episodes? Or who do you think were the shining players of this episode and who you think is going to get advantage running to the end? But with that wraps up our recap. Please press the like button on this video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and click that bell for notifications so you are aware whenever we're putting out new content. We have episodes coming out every Monday and Thursday, exit interviews every Wednesday and Saturday, and our recaps that drop on Sunday. As well as follow us on Instagram, where we will continue to put out some Survivor memes, as well as a place where you can put your questions for the exit interviews, and also potentially see future live reactions with other contestants or alumni from our games. And with that, this was McKenna, Jeremy, and Alex signing off. We'll see you next time.